Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a bit of a long, rambly life update sort of video. It's not really going to add any kind of value to anyone's life, so feel free to not watch it, especially if you haven't been following like my medical journey and stuff and you don't care about this stuff. Please leave the video now, watch something more useful. Watch anything by Thomas Frank or Matt Diavella or... Anyway, this is a life update video. Basically, so for the last few months, I've been sort of talking about taking an exam called the USMLE, the United States Medical Licensing Exam. It's basically an exam that everyone in the US and outside the US has to take if you want to be a doctor in America. And I've been kind of toying with the idea of doing this exam because I've been toying with the idea of moving to America and leaving the UK by definition. Anytime I do that, I always get sort of like dozens of Instagram DMs being like, oh my God, you're moving to the US, like what's going on? So I asked people to send in some questions. And in this video, I'm just gonna kind of generally talk about what my current plans are for life and like where the UK versus medicine versus the US kind of fits into all of that kind of stuff. The first thing to say is that my plans change on a fairly frequent basis. I'm not really one for believing in kind of a long-term plan. I think given that the future is so uncertain, like personally, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I would have had no idea about the effect that this YouTube channel will have on my life. And now it's like literally shaping the direction that my life is going. It's complete uncertainty. A few months ago, no one had any idea what was going to go with coronavirus and all this stuff. The world is so uncertain. And so having any sort of firm plan, like 5-year plan, 10-year plan, all of that is all a complete myth because at best it's just a guess. And at worst, it's kind of holds you to a future that you might potentially not want when you get there. So everything I'm going to say here is going to be with that caveat that my plans always change, but I'm just literally making this video to tell you what the current state of my plans are right now, bearing in mind all of this uncertainty and the fact that you can never really predict the future or plan the future or whatever. So what I'm saying is that I reserve the right to change my mind on this. And this video is in no way me making a sort of legally binding pledge to do the things that I'm intending to do, because I change my mind all the time about various things. Anyway, the US, yeah. So a bit of context. I'm approaching the end of my first 2 years of being a doctor in the UK. Those are the foundation years, FY1 and FY2. For FY1, I was working at Addenbrooke's Hospital, like 10 minutes from where I live in Cambridge, sort of outskirts of town, but in Cambridge. This year I'm working at a hospital called West Suffolk Hospital in the west of Suffolk, which is about an hour's drive in a town called Bury St Edmunds. So that's kind of how it works. Usually you work in a different hospital for 1 year and then a different hospital for the second year. But then after this 2 years in the UK, the way it works is that at that point you can apply for a training pathway. And I suppose the equivalent would be a residency pathway in America. In America, it's kind of weird because you go straight into residency straight from medical school. So you decide you want to be a plastic surgeon and you apply to a plastic surgery residency program. Whereas in the UK, you decide you want to be a plastic surgeon, so you graduate med school, you work for 2 years as a foundation doctor where you're doing rotations in everything, so 6 rotations in different subjects, and then you do another 2 or 3 years as a core surgical trainee where you do sort of surgery and all sorts of different types of surgery, and then at that point, you go into plastic surgery. So you have this sort of 4 or 5 year period before you actually specialize in any one thing in the UK. In the US, it's not like that. You specialize immediately after med school. So it's kind of a different system. I'm approaching the end of these 2 years and my last day at work is August the 4th, 2020. So at that point, I'm gonna be unemployed. And the reason I'm gonna be unemployed is that I haven't applied for any training program. The applications were around about November time. I kind of made a joke in a podcast and a video that I forgot about the applications. I was never really intending to apply for a training program. I was thinking of maybe applying just to see what the interviews are like, but then I kind of forgot. So I was like, oh, whatever. I wasn't gonna apply anyway, is what I'm telling myself. This is very common. More than half of the people, and some figures say 70 to 80% of people in my position don't apply directly to a training pathway. Instead, a lot of people, once you've done your 2 years of being a doctor in the UK as a foundation doctor, you take some time out, you take a year out, maybe more, to do other things. Most people will do something related to medicine. For example, you might do an extra year working in emergency department in London just to get some experience. You might do 6 months of research and then 6 months of traveling. You might go to Australia for a year and locum, do extra shifts in an emergency department there. People do all sorts of stuff with this. In fact, the whole going to Australia thing is very common. More on that in a sec. And so you basically have this kind of gap year or sabbatical where you sort of do what you want. And then most people will apply to a training program within a year or two. And most people will say that they don't regret not going all the way through because, you go through school, you leave school at 18, straight into medical school, 6 years of medical school, 2 years of the foundation program, that's 8 years. I've basically been either in full-time education or working full-time my whole life. And this is the first time that I've got from August the 4th where I actually have a break where I can kind of do what I want without being kind of tied down to formal employment or formal education. So the next question is, what am I going to do in that break? The answer is I don't really know. I was thinking of hashtag traveling the world, but then the whole coronavirus thing happened, and who knows whether I'm gonna actually be able to travel the world. I had this long plan, right? I was gonna, a friend of mine was getting married in Singapore in September, so I was gonna go to Singapore for that. Then I was gonna kind of roam around Southeast Asia just for the bounce. And then I wanted to learn snowboarding in Japan for like December and January and February. And then I was gonna go to Australia and New Zealand for a bit, and then I was gonna go to South America for a bit. Like that was my vague plan. But then the whole virus thing happened, and I don't know if that's gonna happen anymore. My vague plan while doing all this traveling stuff was that I'd prepare for the USMLE, which is this US medical exam, partly because I kind of like exams, partly because, you know, more knowledge is never a bad thing, and I've forgotten the bulk of what I knew in medical school, and although you don't really need it as a doctor as such, it's still kind of nice. It's nice to know stuff, and I would like to know stuff again. But the main reason is because I wanna keep the option of moving to the US open. And that brings us on to why do I want to move to the US? So we had loads of questions from Instagram being like, why leave? What is wrong with the UK? What is wrong with the NHS? Why the US specifically? When are you going? And is earning money one of your main motivations? Why do I want to leave the UK? I think that's the first question to answer. And I think I'm not fully 100% on this. This is just sort of a very tentative plan. But my thinking on this is that firstly, the future is uncertain. No one knows what's going to happen. But in general, you know, what we want to be doing, whatever field we're in, is that we want to be trying to keep our options open. We want to maximize randomness and optionality, which is a phrase that I like to come back to. And there are so many good things in life that happen because of pure serendipity. Like if you ask people how they met their significant others, or how they landed their biggest deal, or how they got their book published, or like all sorts of like big events in life, a lot of times it's just down to being in the right place at the right time. Be like, oh, this opportunity just randomly, serendipitously came about, and I took advantage of it, and then here we are. And you know, the more of these sort of like business type books you read, the more you see this luck factor. Like, you know, people get these different kind of luck events, and they can capitalize on the luck events, and then good things happen in life. One of the philosophies that I buy into is this idea that we can't control the luck events that hit us, but we can increase our surface area for luck events to hit us. By increasing that, like if we have a greater surface area for luck events, it means that, you know, we're exposing ourselves to more interesting kind of things. Like let's say, extreme example, you were in a little village in the countryside in the UK, and you never ever left that village. Chances are you've got a small surface area for serendipity to strike. You're not really gonna meet many new people. You're not really gonna stumble across new opportunities. Like no one is really gonna know you exist. It's difficult for a serendipitous event to really change the course of your life. It still can do. Maybe, you know, some person is roaming through town on their carriage, and it just so happens that you meet eyes and you fall in love and you get married, or whatever. It can, but it's unlikely, right? That's a very, very extreme example. Now, let's say instead that you're the sort of person who moves around, and every 2 years you live in a new country, and you're also you've got a personal blog and you're putting yourself out there online, and there are hundreds of thousands of people, hypothetically, who read your personal blog, who know who you are. And so anytime you go to a new country, you can sort of post on Twitter and be like, hey, who wants to hang out? And you're meeting all these kind of cool people. That sort of person is increasing their surface area for serendipity. Like there are so many, like infinitely more possibilities for interesting things to happen if you're that sort of person than if you're the person who stayed in this little village all their life. What I want to be is more of that second person. And the way that you become that second person is that you keep your options open, and you meet loads of new people, and you expose yourself to sort of situations that you're unfamiliar with. I've been in Cambridge for the last 8 years. I'm very much becoming this village person, just like sitting here in Cambridge doing absolutely nothing else. I mean, apart from the fact that I put myself out on the internet, which is its own serendipity vehicle, more on that in a video at some point. But I'm kind of becoming the sort of person who just kind of sits in Cambridge. And partly this whole kind of moving to the US thing came about because I was actually watching an Unjaded Jade video. Some of you might, if you're still watching this far, you might be familiar with Unjaded Jade. She's a very good study tuber. And she had a video called like how to decide what to do with your life. And I was like, oh, sick, I'm gonna click on this. And she described this idea of the Odyssey plan, which is apparently an exercise that Stanford business students get taught. And the Odyssey plan is that you write down in painstaking detail what your life will look like 5 years from now if you continue down your current path. That's number one. Then you write in painstaking detail what your life will look like 5 years from now if you took a completely different path. And then you write what your life would look like 5 years from now if money and societal expectation was no object. And you kind of write that down. And then you see, like, how do you feel about that? And so I watched this video and I was like, okay, I'm actually gonna do this exercise. So I spent a while, like half an hour, just kind of typing out what my life would look like 5 years from now if I stayed in the UK, if I stayed in Cambridge, as I was previously planning to do. And I actually shared that on my email newsletter post at the time, a few months ago. So you should subscribe to my email newsletter if you aren't already. If you're watching this far, then hopefully you've subscribed because you care about what I have to say. Anyway, I did this Odyssey plan thing. And what I found was that the life that I could see in front of me in 5 years' time when I'm 30. At the time I was 25, I'm 26 now, but you know, like I'm 30 years old. I'm doing part-time training in anesthetics, maybe doing some emergency medicine stuff in Cambridge. I'm physiology supervisor on the side for some colleges. I'm continuing to make YouTube videos. Maybe I'm in a relationship at this point, probably not realistically. And I go to the gym and stuff and hang out with my friends. And I was like, okay, that's fine. That's a very good kind of existence. But I just found myself thinking that is that it? Like, is that really what I want from my life? And then I kind of started having this little like sort of like mini crisis where I was like, oh, well, it just seems a bit too easy. Like, I know that, you know, if that was what I wanted, I'm basically there. Like, I just need to follow the yellow brick road that's laid out in front of me. And I'm just there. Like, there's no challenge to it. There's no discomfort. There's no growth. It's just a case of following this path that's been neatly laid out in front of me and be like, yeah, this is a pretty easy life. And then I was thinking, okay, what if I do something completely different? What if I just kind of travel the world? And that's where this idea of traveling the world came about. Because when you travel the world and you force yourself to like interact with and meet new people, you apparently increase your, people say, makes you more appreciative of what the world is like, and you broaden your horizons and all that stuff. And that would be very much a case of increasing your surface area for serendipity, which is what I want for myself and for everyone that I know. And so that was where that idea came about. So the Odyssey plan, and kind of going back to this US thing, the reason I don't necessarily want to stay in the UK is if I stay in the UK, I'm limiting the amount of sort of world experience that I'll have. Yeah, I could leave Cambridge, I could go to London or something, which would be an interesting experience. There'll be a whole kind of new range of people. But even if I'm in London, my friendship group will basically be the same as it currently is. I'll basically be hanging out with the same people. I'll make a few new friends with the doctors that I work with. Maybe I'll go on a few more dates because there's more people on Tinder in London. But that's kind of it. And life in London will be very similar to life in Cambridge. And so what I'm thinking is that, okay, it would be kind of nice to move to a different country, at least for a bit, just to see what happens. And I think it's almost a no-brainer. Like, if you've got the option of moving to a new country, then you might as well, right? Because I don't think anyone is going to be on their deathbed thinking, oh, I wish I had stayed put. I wish I hadn't I wish I hadn't had that new experience. Like, no one's going to be thinking, I wish I hadn't traveled the world. They're going to be thinking, damn, I wish I traveled the world. And it's sort of in 50 years time when I'm dying, hopefully not 50 years, but you kind of get the point. Hopefully I will look back on this time and think, I'm really glad I decided to live in America for a few years or whatever, rather than just stay in the UK and do my thing. So that is where this idea of going to another country came from. I feel like I've sort of stagnated a bit just kind of being in Cambridge, and I'm sort of craving this sense of adventure, at least for a while. The next question is, why America? There's a few different reasons for this. So Australia is an option, Canada is an option. Canada isn't really an option because firstly, I don't know many people who have done medicine in Canada from being international students, international medical graduates. From what I've heard, it's notoriously difficult to get in because of the whole visa system, and the whole medical system in Canada means that as an international graduate, you are sort of, I was speaking to a doctor about this like just yesterday, and he was saying that the way the Canadian system works is they would rather choose the worst Canadian graduate than the best international graduate. And so you're going to end up in the sticks in the middle of nowhere and not necessarily in the place where you want to be. So that was kind of what I've heard about Canada, although in fairness, I haven't really given it a shot. It's still on the cards. Secondly, Australia is an option. Australia is kind of cool. I was chatting to a doctor yesterday over the phone who works in Australia and moved from the UK to Australia and absolutely loves it. And so Australia would be an option. It's generally a lot easier to get into Australia. You don't have to jump through so many hoops. The medical qualification in the UK is accepted there. You just have to sort of do a few visa bits and then you're done. So it's relatively straightforward to get into Australia. So fine, that's an option. The other option is the US. In general, I want to do my medical training in a place that is sort of broadly similar to the UK. So Australia, Canada, the US. I don't want to go to some place like Cambodia because that would just be a totally novel experience. Yes, it would be very good experience and stuff, but I think that's probably pushing the boat a bit too far. I want to stay in a sort of a big developed country, as it were. So what does America have going for it? Well, the annoying thing about America is that you have to take exams to get in. You've got to take the USMLE, step 1, step 2, step 2 CK, step 2 CS, blah, blah, blah. That's more exams. Do I want to take exams? I kind of like taking exams, and kind of like what I said at the start, more knowledge is always a good thing, as my mom always tells me. And so the fact that I have to take exams is not necessarily a factor against going to America. In fact, arguably, because I make videos like Study With Me videos and videos about revision tips and stuff, and I haven't really been studying properly for exams for the last 2 years, in a way, it benefits my YouTube channel and my audience, and therefore myself, to be able to study explicitly for an exam to then create content out of. And that is sort of a synergy that is somewhat unique to someone in my situation, where I've got a YouTube channel, where most people taking the USMLE aren't going to be in that position where they are actively incentivized to take that exam. So that's partly why I'm not shying away from taking the exam. And also I love exams, and more knowledge is always good. The benefits of going to the US are that firstly, it unlocks a lot of opportunities for collaborations. Like most of my YouTuber friends are in America, right? And so if I want to do a collab with like Thomas Frank or Matt Diavella or Sarah Dici or these other people that I connect with, but like practically everyone in my YouTube agency standard is from America. Like it just unlocks so many new interesting opportunities for collaborations from these people that I'm already like internet friends with. And it just seems that all of the other people that, like most of the people that I follow on Twitter who I'm internet friends with, most of the people I follow in the worlds of productivity, people like Tiago Forte, Natalice, and there's so many people on the internet that I've kind of gotten to know through this YouTube thing who all live in America. And so being in America means that you sort of unlock those interesting collaboration opportunities and I get to meet these people in real life. That's another kind of big plus for going to America. Thirdly, a big plus for going to America is that the bulk of my audience is actually in America. Like looking at my YouTube analytics, about 27% of my audience is in the US. Only about 12% is in the UK. About 12% is from India. And all the other countries make up smaller and smaller chunks. So the US is the significant sort of the significant minority of my total audience. And so if I were to go to the US, that would be kind of interesting, right? It would be interesting from a content perspective. It would be a case of sort of, I could vlog the journey of moving to the US. It would be interesting from a medical perspective. I can actually actively compare the two systems, UK versus USA, having been working there. And then like for the significant minority of my audience, it would be kind of interesting because like, oh, this dude's coming to our country. And even for people in the UK, for people in India and stuff, like people who haven't been to America, there is this sort of allure of America to an extent that Canada and Australia don't really have. Like people would generally be more wondering of, I wonder what life as a emergency medicine resident is like in America, like, in ER and like Grey's Anatomy for surgery and house and stuff. People have less of that kind of sort of intrigue when it comes to places like Australia and Canada. Like I've never once thought, hey, I wonder what life as a Canadian surgeon is like. And the only exposure I have to sort of medicine in Canada has been through Becky and Chris's YouTube channel, link in the video description. So America has all these different factors going for it. The main reason I want to go there is not because of medicine. Like, yeah, the residency is interesting. It's a shorter program, you make more money, but like, I don't really care about the money because I make enough money from this YouTube channel and the other side businesses. The residency program is shorter, which is sometimes can be a good thing. I think for emergency medicine, which is what I think I want to do, it's either 3 or 4 years. Whereas in the UK, you would do 2 years of acute and critical care STEM, and then you would do 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 years as an ED registrar. So you'd sort of be doing the 7-year thing, whereas in America it'd be 3 or 4 years. So there is that side that it's a bit more accelerated. In America, the work is apparently a bit harder, but hey, how hard can it be? America has so many different sort of peripheral factors entirely unrelated to medicine that places like Canada and Australia, and certainly the UK, don't have, which is why America is sort of top of my list of this would be an interesting place to go to do the rest of my training, like to do residency in America. And so to answer some of the specific questions, why leave, what's wrong with the UK? There's absolutely nothing wrong with the UK. I've just been here forever. And so maximizing randomness and optionality, serendipity, it just makes sense to move abroad. What is wrong with the NHS? Again, nothing in my opinion wrong with the NHS. It's a fantastic service. I love the NHS. I love the UK hospitals. They're great. Not saying a bad word against that. It's just, being in the same place for a long time, it's just inherently less interesting than being in different places for short amounts of time, at least in my book, at least for someone like me. Why the US specifically? I think I've talked about that. When are you going? That's a bit weird. That's also very plan dependent. I'm not too keen on plans. But apparently it takes about 2 years to do the whole process. So I'm hoping to take the USMLE, maybe end of this year, maybe early next year. So between like December and February 2020 to 2021, in theory. And then sort of maybe I'll end up in America in 2022 or something like that, assuming I don't take time out along the way or assuming something else doesn't turn up. And assuming I actually get in, of course. Is earning money one of your main motivations? No, not really. Like my end goal has never been to work full-time as a doctor. My end goal has always been to work part-time as a doctor. Like I think 2 or 3 days a week working as a doctor would be quite fun. In America, you work 2 or 3 days a week, you make $200,000 to $300,000 a year. That's all right. I make more than that off YouTube videos. Like the fact that you earn lots of money as a doctor in America is not at all one of my motivations because for me, being a doctor is absolutely not how I want to make money. I want to make money on the side doing lots of other things, and then I want to do medicine for fun, which has been something that I've been sort of telling myself since like first year of med school that this is the goal, to do medicine for fun, to earn money doing other things. So money is not one of the motivating factors to go to America. Technicalities, where in the US are you planning on going to? No idea. New York seems cool. How long are you planning on staying? I think it would be cool to do residency there and then think about moving back to the UK or moving to Canada or moving somewhere else potentially for being an attending, being a consultant. But that's so far in the future that it's completely pointless to think about it. What will happen to your flat/flatmate? My flatmate Molly is moving out in August, so I'm gonna have this flat to myself. And if I leave the country, I'll put it on rent. Like, it wouldn't be too hard. What will you do with all your tech? I've actually been thinking about this a lot. I'm gonna get these big suitcases and I'm gonna create a sort of traveling studio setup. So I'll have this light and a few stands and a proper camera and stuff. And the idea is that anywhere in the world that I go, I'll have my sort of little pop-up studio that I can set up. So I'll probably need to sort of pare down some of the tech. But otherwise, I'll just leave it in the house, because when you rent out a flat, you can rent it out furnished. And I don't think anyone's going to complain that there is a standing desk and, you know, what other tech is there. There's all the video stuff, really. I can take the video stuff with me wherever I go. And what specialty do you want to do? And I'm leaning towards emergency medicine. Let's now talk about the USMLE. So that's the medical licensing exam. When would you recommend starting to prepare for it? And are you sitting it because you miss studying? Partly I'm sitting it because I miss studying. My brother's cynical view would be that, you know, from August, because I won't have a job, I'll have this kind of void in my life that I'll need to fill with something. And it's a very easy thing for me to say, hey, why don't I just take this exam? You know, I need to do something. Taking this exam is something to do. Therefore, I will take the exam. And there is some truth to that. Like, it's a very nice security blanket being able to prepare for another exam. And if I was really being true to myself, if I was really thinking, you know, do I really want to spend 6 months of my life preparing for this exam? Instead, could I not just travel the world for 6 months or something? Yeah, that's probably true. I could probably get a lot more value out of that. But I'm in general a fairly risk-averse person. And I like having the security blanket of, yeah, you know, I'm doing something legit. I'm preparing for an exam. And so at that point, my sort of full-time gig will become preparing for this exam. And my side gig will still be the YouTube thing. And then so I can still tell myself that that YouTube is just a side hustle for me. There are so many psychological benefits to having something like YouTube being a side hustle rather than being a full-time job. If it becomes a full-time job, it means I'm reliant on it for money. It means I'm having to do it. Whereas when it's a side hustle, it's something that I want to do. And so I want to sit down and make this video. I don't feel like I have to do it. And I feel like it would lose some of the charm if it became a proper full-time job. So that's partly why for me, I want to take this exam, kind of because, well, that's kind of the point. So those are some of the background reasons about why I want to go to America. But the thing that really sparked it off was that I've got these two friends who are in New York at the moment. Names are Osama and Shireen. They're married. They're a very cute couple, etc. She's got an Instagram page that's pretty big. We were sort of chatting on Facebook Messenger, like in 2019. And they've been running this course for the last few years because Osama is a dermatology resident in Manhattan. And every year he flies back to the UK and does this sort of physical course about how to make it in America with a company called Liberty Medics, how to make it in America. And every year they sell out to like hundreds of students in the UK who potentially want to move to the US. And so he kind of guides you through the process. And so these guys were in America. And so I was chatting to them, I was saying, have you guys considered doing an online course about this? Because, you know, online courses are great. When you run a physical course, and I would know, having done lots of physical courses, it's a real ball ache. You have to book a venue, you have to deal with logistics, you have to print stuff out, you have to deal with people in person. When you have an online course, and again, I would know because I have online courses, it's fantastic because you film it once and then you profit from it forever. And so I was saying to these guys, have you considered doing an online course? You know, if you do, give me a shout. I can help you get set up and things. And a few months later, he reached out to me. He said that, hey, we should kind of go in together as a business venture for this online course, Liberty Medics, How to Make It in America. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, actually. And so pre-lockdown, like on the 2nd of January, 2020, they came around my house. They flew from America to London, immediately came to Cambridge, and we spent 2 solid days filming this course. For most of the first day, I was just the cameraman. I just had the camera set up, the lights and everything, and it was, you know, it was looking quite pretty, etc. But then the more I was sitting behind the camera and hearing Osama describe what life in the US is actually like and how to get into it, the more I was thinking, hang on, this seems kind of cool. Why don't I do this myself? And so we sort of changed up the structure of the course. Initially, it was just going to be him talking to the camera and Shireen talking a little bit at the camera. But then we added these whole new segments where sort of he and I were like filmed lots of discussions that we had where we were both sitting on the sofa and I was asking him questions like, you know, how much money do they earn in the US? What's it like? What's the work-life balance like? You know, why do you hate the NHS so much? And the question that was like, that I really wanted to ask was this idea of, if you're in the US, sure, like how can you possibly want to work in a healthcare system where they deny life-saving medical care to people who can't afford it? You know, coming from the NHS, that's just morally reprehensible. And so I asked him all these questions on camera, and his responses were very, very reasonable. And actually, if you look in the video description, we have made lots of these videos free on the course website, so you don't have to pay for it if you don't care. But if you care, then like whatever. They're all like, lots of these videos are available for free, where I am grilling him extensively about what is life in the UK, in the US actually like. Do you really have to deny life-saving medical treatment to people, or is that a myth? You know, how much money do they earn? What's work-life balance like? And he's answering all these questions. And after he and I had those discussions over about 2 hours, which again is all filmed, link in the video description. After we had all those conversations, I was thinking, damn, you've kind of answered most of my objections about working in the US. Because my main objection was, I've heard the work-life balance is not great. I've heard that residents burn out all the time. I've heard that you have to kill yourself working for 50 weeks of the year and then you can have a good holiday for 2 weeks of the year. And I've heard that you have to check people's insurance status before you can give them any kind of medical treatment. Those were kind of my main objections. Just that I'd sort of heard on the grapevine without really knowing anything about it. And he answered all of those and then some. And honestly, the main thing that sold it for me was that we talked about kind of the adventure. And I asked him, what's it like moving to a different country? And he said it was really, really good. He said that, and this really sort of stayed with me, he said that like if he stayed in the UK, he could see how his life was going to turn out, is that he would get married, he would have some kids, his kids would want to get into Oxford and Cambridge for medicine, and you know, they'd live in the suburbs of some place near London. And essentially the life he and his kids would live would be almost identical to the life that he lived himself, because that was the exact struggle, the exact journey that he went through with his parents. And so he said that it sort of felt like, you know, I've seen this movie before, I know what's going to happen. And he just sort of felt that he wanted more of an adventure. So when I heard that, I was like, damn, this sort of matches up exactly with what I was thinking with this Odyssey plan that I'd done a few weeks prior to that, completely coincidentally, where I was thinking that, yeah, I can kind of see how this movie plays out. And I don't know, I kind of want to be in a movie where it's a bit more unpredictable and I don't really necessarily know how it's going to play out, rather than just seeing this future mapped out in front of me. And then speaking to Shireen as well about the adventure, yeah, it's a bit lonely at times when you go, but you know, I feel like I'm reasonably okay at making friends. I feel like I know enough people on the internet that I'll have, you know, an existing social network there. I think the adventure is really the main thing that sells it for me. And America rather than any other place for adventure, because there are all sorts of peripheral benefits to going to America that I've talked about already. So that was sort of the proximal spark that sparked this interest in America. Before that, it was just sort of a passing fancy. A few other things. Things to consider that people have asked. How will you be able to do YouTube while working 80 hours a week? I think this is a myth. In the UK as well, people are like, oh my God, you know, working as a junior doctor is really hard. You have all this work to do. I'm like, yeah, but you still make time to do YouTube videos, especially when I now have a team of people. Like there are 3 people working for me, that still feels weird to say. There are 3 other people in the team who help with the videos. You know, we've got, like all I have to do is sit here and film this. And the amount of time it takes me to film it is the amount of time it takes to film the video. Christian or Angus are going to handle the editing side of it and the uploading and everything else. So when you have a team behind you, you can then leverage your time in more interesting ways. And so even if I am working 80 hours a week, how many hours are there in a week? So wait, 80 hours divided by 7. That's on average 11 hours a day. I've done plenty of shifts where I've worked 13 hours and then I filmed a YouTube video that evening. Like, I don't think it's going to be that hard. Secondly, what are the pros and cons lifestyle-wise? Again, we'll put some of the videos of Liberty Medics in the video description. That will be free, so you can watch them if you really want to. Life of a resident and life of an attending, i.e. a consultant, are quite different apparently. Apparently as a consultant, you have a lot more autonomy, you can work part-time. As a resident, it's not really a part-time type thing. I'm sure it'll be hard work, but I think it'll be fun and it'll be interesting. And so I'm not really thinking about the lifestyle, because the thing is that none of these decisions are ever permanent. Like, if I go there, you know, if I even get in, because that's a huge question mark. Like if I get in and if I go there and if I end up not liking it, I can just stop. I can just move. Like this is the benefit of sort of having these multiple streams of passive income, that I don't need medicine to survive. I don't need medicine to like whatever. So if I want to, if I'm not enjoying it, I can just be like, right, screw it. Let's leave America. Let's go back to the UK, and I can just apply to a training pathway in the UK if I really want to. I can go to Australia. The world is open to you when you're a doctor, and the world is even more open to you when you have the financial freedom to not be tied to a place because of money. So that's a big factor why I'm open to considering kind of moving elsewhere. Would you want to start as an intern all over again? Yeah, don't really care. Might be kind of cool. What will you miss most about the NHS? I don't know really. The logo is pretty good. I like the logo. How will you deal with leaving your family and friends? Yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, I haven't really seen much of my family or friends since lockdown, and I've been pretty okay with it, to be honest. And kind of from speaking to Osama and Shireen about this, what they said is that actually, so like once you start working, then you actually see your friends very little. Like I see my friends from med school maybe twice a year, and I can fly back from America to the UK more than twice a year to see my friends. And what Osama was saying is that when he flies back to the UK to hang out with his friends, it's like an event because he's coming back. And so everyone kind of gets together for that event. Whereas otherwise it's like really hard to actually get a group of friends together. Like if you graduated from university and your friends are now working in different parts of the country, you will know how difficult it is to actually meet up with people. So I'm not massively concerned. Plus, you know, got a PlayStation recently, started playing Warzone. I'm sure I'll be able to chat with people on PS5 Live or whatever it's called. Next question is, aren't you scared of the guns? Not really. I don't know much about it, but I'm pretty sure if you're a doctor, then you don't really have much to be hugely worried about. How will you feel when people who need medical care cannot afford it? That was a big one. This was like the main question that I asked Osama about. We have a 25-minute long video about this, explaining why it's not that simple. And certainly before having that conversation with him, the view I had, which was completely uninformed, was that if you can't afford medical care in the US, then you get denied medical care, and therefore the system is bad, therefore the NHS is good, therefore we have moral superiority over the Americans because our healthcare system is moral and just and stuff. And that was my view of it, like not knowing anything about it. If you're interested in the answer to this, I'd recommend you watch that video. It's free. Again, you don't have to pay for it. You can literally just watch it for free. It's 25 minutes of me and Osama having a back and forth about this. And me really trying hard to argue that about why America is bad. And I think he sort of defended the position reasonably well. I certainly don't know enough about it to be able to defend that position myself, but you can watch that video if you're interested. Do you feel any guilt leaving the NHS? No, absolutely not. This was another thing that I've spoken to a lot of senior doctors about, is that a lot of the NHS, you know, there's a phrase that the NHS runs on goodwill. And that really came to the forefront when this whole like coronavirus stuff happened, the lack of personal protective equipment and things like that. The NHS is fantastic, but I don't personally, I wouldn't feel any guilt per se for leaving it. I've gotten this question from a few kind of younger medical students, and I don't mean I don't mean this to be patronizing at all, but like if you're a first year medical student and you're looking at my stuff thinking, oh my God, he's moving to America, what's wrong with him? You know, save the NHS. It's a very sort of sacrificial idealism that almost no one has by the time they've graduated, or at least by the time they've been a doctor for a few years. When you're very young and you're a medical student and you still have this sort of rose-tinted view of what life as a doctor is like, you might think, oh, you know, I'm going to give my life to the NHS, but it's not really like that. And it's certainly not like that for me. I don't really feel any guilt leaving the NHS. The NHS is also like a huge thing. It's like leaving the NHS, it's effectively like leaving the country. The NHS is the country's biggest employer. Like leaving the NHS, it's like not even a concept. Like I feel no guilt about not working next year. That's basically leaving the NHS because, you know, how will the NHS survive without me? But the NHS will survive without me. Like it's a huge organization. Like an individual does makes absolutely zero difference. And so why would I feel guilt about it? That's kind of my thoughts on this. I'd be more than open to changing my mind and actively feeling more guilty about it. If people want to give me a compelling case to, feel free to leave that in the comments if that's the case. So yeah, that was kind of the end of my rambly life plan. The plan is to take the USMLE in the next few months to actively prepare for it, which I've started to do, to really ramp up the preparation for it once I finish my job in August, and then for a few months do solid preparation for the exam with a view to doing emergency medicine residency in America as the current state of the plan, bearing in mind it's always subject to change. I'm kind of liking the idea of maybe working in Australia for a few months after having this chat with a doctor yesterday. Liking the idea of maybe becoming a doctor on a cruise ship for a year or so and just seeing what happens. And you know, I've got all these sort of interesting sort of things that I could do. But at the moment, the medium-term goal is to do emergency medicine residency in the US. And I will certainly update you guys if that plan changes. So if you've reached this far, thank you so much for watching. Have a good time. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you actually got this far. Let's put like a little like a sun emoji or something. You know, just so I can see how many people watch this far, and I'll try and hang out in the comments to answer any questions that people have. I'm more than open to sort of being swayed on this front in terms of actually, you know, if someone is actually educated about this and knows about how the system works, if you strongly advise me against it, then, you know, I'd be more than happy to listen. But at the moment, those are my reasons. That's the mental model in my head about why America might be a good option for me. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.